Hello and welcome back to my channel and Happy New Year! My name is Jason, or as you may know me, Ezeekat, and today I'm going to be showing you all the books that I read in December of 2022. I had a very good month of reading in December, and there are a lot of books in this pile, so I'm going to try and go quick and not get too bogged down in one book, because I don't need this to be an hour-long video. I don't think we need that, right? Of course, make sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell. That way you know when I'm posting a video. One small disclaimer I want to make is that some of the books in this pile I'm going to be talking about are Harper Collins books, and some of you may know that Harper Collins, the union, is on strike. So I am going to mention those books and just do a quick rundown of them, but I'm also going to be putting some information in the description so that you can see, so you can learn more about the strike, what's going on, and how you can help support it as well. I also lost track of the order that I read all these books, so they're going to be in no particular order, just I read all of these in December. All right, let's jump in. Starting off strong, I read The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet by Becky Chambers. Now, if you've been following me, you know that I recently discovered Becky Chambers. I read the Monk and Robot books, absolutely loved them, and was like, I need to read everything this person has ever written, so picked this one up. And this was no different. I loved it. It's very cozy sci-fi. It's very, it's nice to read a sci-fi book where, all of the characters are really good at their jobs. They know what they're doing. The stakes are there, but they're pretty low. It's really just an adventure of learning about the characters, learning their relationships with each other, learning about their, the different types of aliens and things like that are on this ship. It's really beautiful and really lovely, and I absolutely loved it. It's also, pretty queer, and I'm all for that, so yes, please. This was a delightful read. I think people that are looking for, more high-octane action sci-fi probably won't enjoy it as much, but to me, this was very much like Mass Effect if Mass Effect was cozy. And to me, that's, the perfect book. So I loved it. This month, I also started tabbing books for the first time, so you're probably going to see a lot of my books are tabbed this month. This is really, this has been a game changer for me as far as reading and how I consume books, and I am loving it. So you're gonna see a lot more tabbed books on my page from now on, and it's here to stay. All right, as you guys know, I'm trying to read all of the Discworld books. I've started getting down to one or two a month just so that I, kind of pace myself. But this month I read Reaper Man. Reaper Man is interesting to me because it is much less satirical than the other Discworld books. It is much more of just a story. So essentially Death has become too human or has too much of a personality, so he gets told that he's not going to be Death anymore. So he goes to work on a farm. And in the meantime, because there's no Death, there's an interim period, everything sort of goes to craziness. There's also a few other characters, there's a character named Wendell Poons who is supposed to die, but he ends up not dying because Death's not there, so he becomes undead. And he was a really fantastic character, seeing the world through his eyes, and because of how he dies and comes back, we sort of get some really interesting concepts of what makes up a life, and what really is age, and what really is time, and what is life, and what is death. And I really loved all of that. There's this moment in the book where basically a strip mall comes to take over Ankh-Morpork, and there are shopping carts going everywhere and harassing people. It felt really out of place, honestly, amidst all of this other really great stuff that was going on, this quieter, simpler, almost cozy story. So I didn't like that aspect of the book, and that's kind of the reason that Reaper Man won't probably ever be in my top 5 Discworld books. But everything else I really liked. I also really like Death. I just wish he was in the book more. I feel like this is a book about Death. He was actually a pretty minor character. I would say that Wendell Poons was the main character, but I really liked Wendell Poons, so I was kind of okay with that. But yeah, that's Reaper Man. I wanted to read a Christmas book and a Hanukkah book this month. This is the Hanukkah book, so this was 8 Nights of Flirting. Just a really cute, just adorable. So this girl goes home for Hanukkah, and she basically wants to flirt with this guy that she knows is coming to their Hanukkah party, but she doesn't know how to flirt. So she kind of enlists the help of her old crush / nemesis to help her learn to flirt. And it's got the fake dating trope. It's got kind of some enemies to lovers. It's very cute, and I really, really enjoyed it. And I thought the writing was adorable. I don't think I've ever read a Hanukkah themed book, and I thought this was really great. It just was very accessible. It was very fun. It was cute. It was the perfect holiday rom-com. It was exactly what I wanted to read for the holidays. That being said, the Christmas book I read was Talk Santa to Me, and I did not like this book. The thing about this book is, it's about this girl who works, her family owns this shop that basically, trains Santas, mall Santas and things like that, and, her whole life, because of that, kind of revolves around Christmas. And there's like a cute little rom-com element to it. But the thing is, the writing to me felt so immature and childish. And like, I read a lot of middle grade. I don't mind like younger aimed writing, but like this is supposed to be a YA, rom-com, and it just felt so silly and like Disney Channel movie levels of like cringiness. Like, and if I'm gonna watch Disney Channel movie cringiness, I would rather just watch it on the Disney Channel than spend this much time reading it. This was not great for me. I was really disappointed in this book because I thought, look at the cover. You can't see it. It's so cute. I just wanted a cute little Christmas story. What I got was just like a really meh, kind of just borderline dumb Christmas book. It was a no from me. I read A Winter's Promise. So this is the first book in the Mirror Visitor series, which is a 4-book long like fantasy series. I don't know why talking for me is so hard today. New year, new me, right? Okay, so this is probably the closest I've ever read something to like a Studio Ghibli film. It really, really had those vibes, like Howl's Moving Castle, Spirited Away, and I loved that about it, okay? What I will say, this book is one of the slowest paced books I have ever read in my life. Oh my God. I feel like I feel, a lot happened in the book, but it also was one of those books where I constantly felt like nothing was happening. There's a lot of description of the world. So if you like world building and magic systems and really just like the vibes, absolutely you're gonna like this book. But just know the pacing is so slow. And the main character, her storyline, like her character growth all happens in like the last 3 to 5 pages. For the rest of the book, she's pretty much the same. And then in the last 3 to 5 pages, she finally like learns something and is like, I'm going to go do this, right? And then you're like, oh, but then the book is over. So I have mixed feelings. I thought I loved the writing and I love the world and I really like the characters and I love the vibes. But man, it was slow. So I am going to read the rest of the series. I have the rest of the series. I liked it enough to want to keep going. And it's not that I didn't dislike the book. It was a hard book to get into because it was a relentlessly slow pace. And it never let off, you know how they always say, like, it never let off the gas pedal? This was like if my grandma is driving like a block and it takes us like 30 minutes to get there because she's just like nudging a little bit on the little, it can't go over the speed limit. And that's what this book feels like. My grandma driving to the grocery store. But it's pretty. Maybe it's fall. It's beautiful out. What am I talking about? That's the Mirror Visitor. All right, next up is The Sunbearer Trials by Aiden Thomas. Let me tell you what, this book, I went into this book fully expecting to not love it. And I'll tell you why. First of all, I really did not like Lost in the Neverwoods. That book just did like nothing for me. But I loved Cemetery Boys. So I was very 50-50 on whether Aiden Thomas was like an author that I was going to like all of his stuff. The other reason is that I've talked about this before on a bunch of my channels. I am so tired of the like young adult obsession with like competitions. Like ever since the Hunger Games, and I think Throne of Glass had it too, and that was a popular one. All these young adult books have to have a competition. We've got to compete to find out who lives and who dies and who wins and I'm tired of it because it's in everything and it's often not done very well. It's often just there as like pure plot, like pure action and no like character development, no plot. Like it's just there to be like a filler action sequence and it just drives me nuts. So I went into Sunbearer Trials fully expecting like all these things. I was like, I'm not going to like this. And I loved it. I think there's so much good about this book, right? Like it is a really fun action adventure story. I love the way that Aiden Thomas has incorporated all of this Mexican lore into like a modern day world. And also like there really is something to be said. Like this is a book where the representation just takes the book to a whole nother layer, right? Because the fact that there are so many queer characters and we're reading this like action adventure, like could be a blockbuster movie story with a trans main character is so exciting because it just feels fresh and different. And Teo's character, his being trans has so much to do with his character and his arc and his struggles and his story. And there are other queer characters in the book. It's not just him. Like the whole book is just delightfully queer. And I just really, really liked it. This is the first of a duology. And I think it says something that I went in like fully expecting this to just not do it for me and ending up like loving it. Like this book was fantastic. And it was just a lot of fun. It was a really fast read because it was once I started reading it, I was like, gotta know what happens, gotta know what happens. And I think it sets up the second book very well, and it doesn't seem like the second book is gonna have that like contest element to it, which I'm super happy about. But yeah, this was great. This was great. All right, so next up is A Scatter of Light. Malinda Lo wrote a book called Last Night at the Telegraph Club. I believe that came out last year, which I adored. Or maybe it came out 2 years ago. I don't know, but I loved it. And this is another sapphic YA kind of drama, like romance drama. This one is set more modern day, so it's not set specifically in 2022, but it is set like pretty modern day. I think the characters are very fully realized. I love how Malinda Lo like writes the feeling of falling in love with someone. Like the fact that you notice every little thing about them, like how their clothes sit on their skin and, you know, the little things, like just the way she writes, like the actual act of falling in love. So beautiful. Loved it. I think the thing about this book is I want you to know that I think this book is good, and I think people are going to read this and love it. I think my issue with the book is that I don't think it's very memorable. When I finish this book, there just isn't anything, there's not like a wow factor. There's not like something that I step away and go, wow, that was really special. That was really unique. It feels, a lot of aspects of it feel like I've read them before. There's nothing about it that really stands out. I feel like there was a time where there were so few gay, sapphic, queer, you know, contemporary romance books or contemporary dramas. So they all felt really unique and special, and they didn't have to do much because just the fact that they were queer was special. Now I think we're kind of entering a different time, right? Like there are so many different queer stories, and they're so varied, and there's so much out there that I want them to feel a little bit different and a little bit more, and this one it didn't stand out to me. But that being said, I still thought it was absolutely beautiful, and I would highly recommend it. I mean, I thought the writing was just like stunningly gorgeous. And we'll talk about it in a second, but I read another like YA sort of sapphic romance book this month. Romance is the wrong word, but like YA contemporary sapphic book, that I thought did stand out from the pack. And this to me kind of just felt like pretty like run-of-the-mill good. A little bit better than run-of-the-mill because it was good. So yeah, if you're looking for like a YA contemporary sapphic story, I think this was excellent. Like I said, I think the writing was very superb, superb. I think it was just really beautiful. It just didn't like wow me. There are two like series of books that I read this month that I read multiple books in the series. So I'm going to talk about those together. And the first was Gideon the Ninth and Harrow the Ninth. Wow. Wow. These books, obsessed. So good. Essentially, these books are like space, sci-fi / fantasy stories about necromancers, like going into, they kind of have, this one especially has kind of like the feeling of being in an escape room, and they're trying to essentially like unlock their abilities and learn their powers in order to be able to serve the emperor of the universe, essentially, in his battle. And Gideon is not a necromancer, but she serves a necromancer, and she is just kind of like a warrior, right? Like she's a powerhouse warrior, and with a sassy attitude and like a mouth on her. Like the lines that come out of Gideon's mouth are so funny and so ridiculous. Like Gideon is a character, first of all, and one that I just absolutely adored. These books are wild. And I said this in my TikTok and on my Instagram reviews, but like, they are not books to be taken lightly. They are not books to casually listen to on an audiobook while you're doing like 5 other things. Like these are books you need to really like invest your time and your brain into, because there is so much going on. And oftentimes you don't really understand how it all fits together until towards the end of the book. So picking up on every little detail is like very important in these books. And that is very true of Harrow the Ninth, in which the first 350 pages I knew on a very like simple sense what was going on, but also like you just really don't know what's going on. Like this book messes with your mind in the best of ways. And when you do find out what's going on, it's so rewarding because you'll be like, what? Like it's just, they're both so good. Really love these. These are adult. I mean, they're set in space, but I would say they're fantasy. Like they do not there's nothing science-y about any of this to me. Like, it's all very, like, fantasy magic based. But they are set in like a space setting. Both of these books are just out of this world incredible. But they are books that they're gonna make your brain itch. And you're gonna you kind of have to just go in knowing I am not gonna know what's going on for most of this book, and I can accept that because that's the only way. Like, the only way is to go in not knowing anything and expecting not to know anything, and then being grateful when they tell you anything. Like, that's how I felt about these. I loved both of them. I think I liked Gideon as a character more, but I think I liked Harrow the Ninth as a book more, because the experience of reading this was unlike anything I've ever read before. Like, it was a wild ride, and when I got done with it, I was just like, my jaw was on the floor. Like, I was like, like, so good. These are both excellent, and I am sad I put them off for so long because they're so good. Another two books that I read in the same series this month were Legendborn and Bloodmarked by Tracy Deonn. Legendborn was actually a reread for me, but I really did not remember much of what happened in it, so I wanted to reread it before I read Bloodmarked. I'm so glad I did. That was the right choice, because I remembered nothing that happened in this book. It was like reading it for the first time, honestly. And then Bloodmarked was actually my last read of 2022. I literally finished it the night of December 30th, and y'all, these books are so special. I said this in my TikTok review, but I'll repeat it here. This has easily become my favorite young adult series that is currently happening. I adore them so much. The characters are so fantastic, and the story is so powerful. The story is. I mean, I said this in my shorter review as well, but I think what makes these books so special is that they just so well weave together so many elements. But they're weaved together just so tightly. You know, there's like this crazy action adventure story that has to do with like Arthurian magic and Arthurian bloodlines, right? But then there's also, and you have like action and fighting demons and stuff like that. But then there's these deeper storylines about Bree, and like she is basically coming into her power in a super oppressive system, in a super racist system, and seeing how she deals with that and seeing how all of that affects her. And on top of all that, there's also this other storyline of, you know, in the first book, she's lost her mother. So the books deal with trauma and grief and generational trauma in just really beautiful, but also surprising ways. And then, I mean, Bree herself has become one of my favorite female characters in anything I've ever read. But then all the other characters in the book are just as realized and just as amazing. And like Selwyn Kane, who is like one of the main characters, I love his character so much. But there's so many great characters. And every time a new character, it's one of those series where every time a new character gets introduced, you're excited because you just know their character is going to be awesome. And you can't wait to find out how they're awesome, because Tracy really writes characters just to be so unique and so special. And like, all of them feel like they could be a fan favorite because they're just so good. Loved. This was my second favorite book of the year. If you saw my favorite books of the year, this was number 2. And Legendborn was just as amazing. I think I liked Bloodmarked a little bit more, but they're both incredible. If you're not reading this series yet, get on it. It is one of the best, not just one of the best young adult things I've ever, like fantasy things I've ever read, but one of the best fantasy things I've ever read. It is so fantastic. Go read it. Okay, I have decided I want to get back into the High Republic. So a long time ago, I reviewed this book, Light of the Jedi, and I've decided this is the first book in the High Republic, all right? I've heard such good things about High Republic. I've read some of the middle grade ones, and I liked those. There are so many authors that I like that are doing High Republic now. I want to get into it, but this is the start, and I haven't read this for 2 years, so it was important for me to reread it. I did not like it just as much as I didn't like it the first time around. Here's the thing with Light of the Jedi, okay? And this is why I have hope for like going further into this series. I like a lot of the new concepts that are being introduced. I like a lot of the ideas. I like the villains that they're introducing. I like the setting of it all. I like all of that. What I don't like is Charles Soule, his writing in this book, at least, physically hurts me. Like, it is so bad, and it is so repetitive, and just the way he writes just feels to me like it feels like no one edited it, because there are often times where he'll be like, they cut through the clouds, and the next sentence he'll be like, well, actually they didn't cut, they swerved. Like, why didn't you just start with that? Why do you have to say one thing and then like backpedal and say something completely different happened? Like, why even say the first thing? And he does that a lot. The writing is just so immature. And this is supposed to be from their adult series, and it just feels written. I've read middle grade books written better and more mature and more thoughtful than this. Like the writing in this book is truly painful. I like a lot of the things that are happening in this book. I like a lot of the characters that are happening in this book, and I like the direction that the High Republic starts off in this book. But man, it is hard to get through this book because the writing is really rough. So I am excited to read more of the High Republic, but I am glad to be done with this one because it was a struggle. It was a struggle to get through it the first time, and it was a struggle to get through it the second time. All right, we got 3 books to go. Next up is We Deserve Monuments. I heard about this at YALLFest when I was there in... When was I there? November? I don't know. And it sounded fantastic, and so I needed to read it. Okay, so this is also a sapphic contemporary drama. But this was really good. This was so powerful. It really deals with so much having to do, not just with like race and, racial oppression in America, but it also has to do with how that affects like our current generation and how they perceive all of that. It also has to do really deeply with like community and family and, the hurt and the love that families can give to each other and, the secrets and the lies that we tell and how that, either can bring us together or pull us apart. Oh my God. And there's kind of like a murder mystery involved as well. But just really the main character and her relationship with her grandmother, who is basically dying in the book, is so incredible. And it's so like, it feels so real. The dialogue between all the characters in this book feels so raw and real. And I can't even fully describe this book. Like, it really is just like a contemporary, it's a story of a young woman who gets, her and her mom and her dad go to stay with their grandma, who they don't really have a great relationship with because she's kind of mean, and because her grandmother is dying, essentially. And we get to see her like connect with her grandma for the first time and connect over generations, and it's just stunning. It's beautifully written. It's incredibly moving. It's fantastic. I really, really, really liked this book a lot, and it is definitely a tearjerker. Let me just tell you right now, it is definitely going to make you feel a lot of things. And there are parts of it that are really, really hard to read. Like I said, it does deal a lot with like racial injustice, not just like looking back at it, but specifically, her grandma talks about things that have happened to her in her past, which are just so insanely heartbreaking. But just the overall story of this family, like kind of learning to love each other despite a history of pain and trauma is really good. Highly recommend. We Deserve Monuments. All right. I read Nick and Charlie by Alice Oseman. This is the novella that comes after the 4 graphic novels that are already out of Heartstopper. It's okay. Like, I know Heartstopper and the fandom, and I think a lot of us that are Heartstopper fans, we want to absolutely adore every little thing that comes out from Heartstopper. And I do think there's a lot to like here. I just think it is a novella. So the next thing I say is going to be like, well, duh, you should have known that. But it's so short that I feel like I didn't get enough story to actually like love it. And I've read novellas that are really short that by the time I get to the end and I'm like, wow, this was incredible. This was just like, it just felt like another little day in their life. Obviously they go through a little bit of a rough patch and we see that, but it didn't feel like big enough to warrant its own like full little novella. I don't know. I think it just didn't, I don't know what I was expecting, but it just didn't feel like enough of anything. Like, it kind of felt just so minor that I was like, okay. I guess it's nice to get a little bit more of their story. I do think the writing is really lovely. I think Alice Oseman is just a fantastic writer. And I think there's many like quotable one-liners. And I like that there are actual images like from the, there's some actual images of her, art and things in the book, which I think is great. One little thing I will point out, because I'm still kind of processing how I feel about this, right? So in Heartstopper, in the comic, in the web series, and also in the show, Nick and Charlie are this very innocent young high school couple. In this, we are seeing them doing some very not innocent high school couple things. There is some more mature content, and it is very like tasteful. It's very like fade to black. It's nothing, it's nothing too crazy. But it was kind of jarring to have them talking about the physical aspect of their relationship so much, because I feel like we haven't gotten a lot of that in the other versions of this story. And it was jarring to see so much of that because they do have such this innocence about them. And I feel like it was talked about and referred to enough that I was like, whoa, okay. And like, I know that obviously high schools are doing things, right? Like I'm not saying that is not the case. And obviously I love when books are very pro talking about the physical things that high school couples are doing, because I think it's important to acknowledge that. But it was just jarring in this specific case because of my relationship as a reader with these characters. So I don't know if anybody else felt that. It might have just been in my head. For some reason for me, I was like, whoa, whoa, I just wasn't expecting it. And that's not to say that it was a good or a bad thing. It was a surprise to me when I read it. So yeah. And last, but certainly not least, this month for our book club, for Ezeekat's book club, which I'll put a link to in the description if you want to join for January, we're going to be reading Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin. This past month, we read Daughter of the Moon Goddess by Sue Lynn Tan. I thought this was quite good. This is kind of taking a traditional Chinese folktale and sort of putting a spin on it. And we're seeing this young woman who, her mom is the moon goddess. She has been imprisoned on the moon. This young woman is her child, and the emperors and the court don't know about her. So her daughter escapes and then ends up like going to like work for the court in hopes of gaining enough favor that then she can reveal who she is and get her mom freed. This is the first in a duology. I like that even though it's first in a duology, this is a very complete story. Like, if there never was a sequel, this would still feel very standalone. I love that there's a sequel because I want to read more in this world, but you don't have to. And I think that's pretty cool. I think the characters and the world building and this feels very much like a fairy tale. Like, it feels like you're sitting down and somebody's like, once upon a time, and tells you this grand sweeping story. The pace is insane. Like, the book moves at such a crazy pace that you'll be like, ooh, now we're going to get a little bit of this. And, oh, it's over. Like, it moves so fast. I think all of the fantasy elements are really great. I think the writing of this book is just okay. Like, I found this is stocked in a lot of stores, I feel like, in the adult fantasy section. And I guess I can see why, but the writing definitely feels more young adult in a lot of aspects. The characters feel very young. A lot of their decisions feel very, like, young person oriented. And they are younger characters, so I guess that makes sense. But the writing for me was just okay, even though I really liked the story and I liked the main character a lot. I think this was a debut, and I'm really excited to see what Sue Lynn Tan does in the future, because I think so many elements of this book were just so good. I just felt like the writing could have been a little bit crisper, a little bit sharper, a little bit more detailed. Like, sometimes the detail would come out and I loved it, and sometimes the pace was so fast there wasn't even time to, like, detail anything. And so I was like, wait, what's happening? Where are we going? What's next? It's a very wild ride from start to finish because there's just so much going on. This book also has like a love triangle, but it had the unique problem that I didn't like either of the options. Like, there's two guys that are like kind of into her, and I did not like either of them. So I had a hard time really caring about the love triangle aspect, because I was like, no, don't be with either of them. Be on yourself. Be a strong, independent woman. You don't need either of these losers, which is fine. I ended up giving Daughter of the Moon Goddess a 4 out of 5. Like I said, I liked almost everything about it. I wish the writing had been a little bit stronger to support this really gorgeous fairy tale, folktale story that is being told. But I liked a lot of the elements, and I liked the overall story and the main character a lot. Oh, that's everything I read in December. It was a good reading month for me. I'm really excited to go into January. I have a whole bunch of books that I'm going to be reading in January. And this was just a really fun reading month for me. Some great books, some snoozers, some old books, some new books, just lots of really good stuff. I'm excited to hear your thoughts on any of these books, if you read any of them. And I would also love to hear if you read anything amazing in December. Please let me know that as well. If you're just enjoying the book club, like I said, you can check that information down below. I've also linked the Harper Collins Union Strike information if you want to learn more about that, or sign your support for them as well, which is a really cool way to show like solidarity. And you can check that out as well in the caption. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe if you haven't already. And as always, happy reading.